Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are looking at all the new cards for Knights of the Frozen Throne. So to see them in the game, you come over here to Collection, you click Crafting, and then you click Frozen Throne. And the last time we looked at the Rogue cards were pretty disappointing, average, and now we're looking at the Shaman cards. We have a 2 mana, 2 attack, 2 health creature called Burlock, and he is a Murloc creature. So they're still doing Murlocs. For a while there, it felt like they were not going to do any Murlocs. The battle cry, freeze an enemy, not too bad. The question will be, for the Shaman, is the frozen mechanic something that synergizes, or is it just something we can do because it's thematically appropriate with Knights of the Frozen Throne? The next card we have is a 2 mana spell called Cryostasis. Give a minion +3/+3 and freeze it. And how the freeze mechanic works is a little bit tricky, but effectively, if you summon a minion and it has charge and you freeze it before you attack, it will unfreeze at the end of your turn. Whereas if it had charge and you attacked and then played Cryostasis on it, it would have to wait the entire next turn to unfreeze. So freeze is based around whether you had the opportunity to attack. If it doesn't have charge and you freeze it, it has to wait a whole turn. If it's already attacked and you freeze it, it has to wait a whole turn. So there's a crazy mechanic there that most people won't understand, or maybe people will learn it. Next we have a 2 mana spell called Ice Fishing. Draw 2 Murlocs from your deck. Here's the problem with my Murloc deck that would probably not play this card, is I have 30 Murlocs. There are more than 30 Murlocs available in the neutral cards. Playing this only works for new players that don't have enough cards to fill up full of Murlocs in the first place. Like any draw card, in any card game, pretty much, if you're drawing more cards, it's because you don't have anything better to do than draw more cards. And very rarely is there a scenario where that makes sense. Unlike, say, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Collectible card game where you could get 5 pieces of Exodia and win the game immediately, there's nothing like that so far in Hearthstone. There's no special cards that you win automatically if you have in your hand, or even become super important to have in your hand. So new players will play that. I won't. Next we have is a 3 mana, 2 attack, 8 health creature called the Jakari Defender. It has Taunt and Overload 3, so we're back to Overload. I don't know if I would want to play an Overload deck nowadays. It's just too punishing, honestly, and we haven't seen an introduction of enough cards that react to being overloaded. There are 3 or 4 cards that do gain attack or do something else for being overloaded, but it's a very tough strategy, and one more card for that tough strategy is helpful, but probably not good enough. Next we have a 3 mana, 1 attack, 3 durability weapon called the Icebreaker. I believe this is the 3rd weapon that they've introduced. Destroy any frozen minion damaged by this. Okay. So, between the 3 mana to summon this and the 2 mana to summon this, on your 5th turn you could potentially destroy something pretty powerful. I doubt it would get played that much though. I would like to see some expansion come out and there's at least one good weapon that everybody practically has to play for every single class of character. That would be nice. It would help push weapons as a more important part of the game, where right now they're pretty forgotten. Next we have a 4 mana spell called Avalanche. Freeze a minion and deal 3 damage to the adjacent ones. This is an interesting card because it doesn't do 3 damage to the one in the middle. It just freezes the one in the middle. So assume you had like a 1/1 minion in the middle and then a 3/3 over here and a 3/3 over here. You freeze the weakest one, which you'll have to deal with later, and kill the 2 on the side. This is exact opposite of what you typically see, which is something that does a lot of damage on the minion in the middle and then less damage on the edges. I think this is a great idea, and this card probably shouldn't just be for the Shaman. They should have similar cards for all the others, or it should be neutral. Next we have our hero replacement. 5 mana, pretty cheap. 5 armor, Thrall, Death Seer. Battlecry, transform your minions into random ones that cost 2 more. For the Shaman, that's probably not a terrible thing, particularly if you're playing a Murloc deck. But it is a little too random for what the professionals will want to play. And his special ability is Transmute Spirit. Hero power for 2 mana. Transform a friendly minion into a random one that costs 1 more. So if you played this on the 7th turn, you could potentially knock something up to 3 levels higher than what it was. And as you go higher and higher, the odds of you getting something very powerful goes up and up, because there's not as many 10 mana cards as there are 0 mana cards and 1 mana cards. So pretty good. In fact, maybe one of the best hero replacements we've seen so far. Next we have a 5 mana, 2 attack, 7 health creature called the Voodoo Hexer. It has taunt and freeze any characters damaged by this minion. Again, freezing, but no great synergy here other than this weapon to freeze. Next we have a 6 mana, 4 attack, 4 health creature called Moribi. Whenever another minion is frozen, add a copy of it to your hand. Here's the synergy right there. You play this and then you start freezing things and you get copies of the card, which still is probably not the greatest thing in the world, but it is an interesting twist. It's a good way to target and steal specific cards, which is often very much impossible to do. And then here we have a 11 mana, 8 attack, 8 health elemental, and I believe this is only maybe the 2nd or 3rd elemental we've seen in the game, called Snow Fury Giant. It costs 1 less for each mana crystal that you've overloaded this game. This is finally a synergy card for Overload that I could see playing. And because it's epic, you can have 2 of them in your deck. So maybe I will build an Overload deck now. Like, this easily could get down to a 0 mana card, a 0/8/8, because you can pretty easily overload 8 mana crystals. And there's great ways to overload early in the game where you can overload more cards than more crystals than you even have. So I'll be interested to see if that counts. So that last card was a bit of a surprise, and it makes it a little bit better. They didn't do too much with Murlocs, though, but I don't think you really need to do too much with Murlocs. Just every now and then throw them a bone and remind the players that you're still remembering that they exist, and that's kind of all you need to do. That's it for the Shaman cards. A little interesting, a little dull. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.